Our next speaker needs no introduction, but the topic of his speech might. This is what is in store for the Binance ecosystem and what are Binance's plans around it. Binance has come a long way in the past 2 years. What started out as an exchange has diversified into multiple branches of complementary businesses and services. It's pretty clear at a glance that Binance is building its own ecosystem and may even be evolving into a sort of super app. What are Binance's goals moving forward, and what is its roadmap? In this fireside chat, we'll be talking about Venus 2020, working within the US, and much more. If you have any questions for CZ, please use www.slido.com. Enter the code BlockShow 2019, select stage 1, scan the QR code on the screen, and write your question. Thank you very much. Please welcome our moderator, JOANNA OSSINGER, markets editor at Bloomberg, for the fireside chat with CZ, CEO at Binance.
Okay, welcome everyone. It's great to see a huge crowd out here. So as was said, I'm JOANNA OSSINGER with Bloomberg News. Looking forward to a great discussion with someone who basically needs no introduction. So I think we'll probably just get into it from here, and because we want to hear what this man has to say. So how are things going? How's Binance?
Things are going well. So for those who may not know me, I'm CZ from Binance. I'm the CEO of Binance. Yeah, things are going pretty well in general. Yeah, I've been talking nonstop for the last 3 days. There's like a lot of conferences going on in Singapore. Losing my voice a little bit, so I apologize about that. But yeah, working pretty good. Yeah.
Excellent. So how are you looking at 2020? What plans do you have? How are you approaching things going forward?
Sure. I think most of the time our plans are very simple. We just push our products, and in the last 3 months or so, we launched a whole slew of new products, futures, fiat gateways, P2P trading. So those products are relatively new, so we just got to iterate through those products and make those products more accessible to more people. So adding more fiat pairs, adding more fiat gateways, adding more region support for P2P trading, and then adding more contracts on futures. So there's a lot of different stuff going on. It's kind of really hard to keep track on top of my head. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. So one of the things that we are going to talk about is super exchange to super app. So can you tell us more about exactly what that will involve?
Sure. So I think basically 2 years ago when we first started, or like a couple of years back, people view exchange as a very single function feature. So you just basically trade. I think today we're doing a lot more than that now. So because today most of the users congregate around centralized exchanges. That's how the user numbers work. That's the easiest way to access crypto and to use crypto. So then we're adding a lot more other functions like staking, airdrops, supporting forks. Hopefully later on we may even do payments and stuff like that. So now, and also with a new technology, you typically consolidate a lot of different roles in the traditional markets. For example, like traditional markets, you have the broker, you have the exchange, you have custody, and now everything's consolidated into one because now that we are able to do that with a new technology. So, so now people have the concept of a super exchange where the exchange is doing well, not everything, a lot of value-added services at the same time. So we want to make that easy for our users. So we want to continue to build up on that. And to be honest, for the last 2 years or so, we have not been doing enough on the app. So now we're actually, but we are in the mobile internet stage arena now. So we got to add a lot more features onto the app. We do see a majority of people using exchanges or crypto on the go. So we got to make our app a lot better. So that's kind of what we're working on.
Okay. Yeah. So does that involve things like interest-bearing deposit accounts and other things that legacy banking services have been in, or is it?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, lending is a very strong feature with a very high demand. We're pushing out as well. Oh, we pushed out as well, and we're still we pushed out fixed term lending. We also now released what we call variable term lending. So you can lend and redeem at any time, and the interest rates are pretty much better compared to traditional financial banks or financial markets. Right now, the way we get the interest rate is not unlike a bank where we take the money and give it to somebody outside the bank. The money people lend stays on the platform. So basically, we only use that money for margin traders. So the guys who are doing margin trading, they have to borrow cryptocurrency from somebody else. So those are where the lending coins go. And for margin trading, we do risk management. So basically, they are risk managed, and the margin trader guys have their own margin. They have to put a collateral they have to put in. If they lose more than close to those kind of collateral, we liquidate. So the funds actually don't leave the platform. So and this way there's a whole ecosystem that flows through, and we are able to provide lending services. So. A lot of people, DeFi is a very hot topic in our industry, and right now, so we want to do that as well. We support that, but also on the centralized exchanges, we also do what we call CFI, I guess. So we try to provide whatever people, whatever our users demand.
Okay, and just with Venus, how is development of that going?
Venus is going great. So Venus is more a loosely coupled project, so it should contain a number of stable coins across different regions. And the first one is actually, to my surprise, actually US dollars, BUSD, the Binance USD. And just give people here an example, BUSD is now accepted by the Bermudian government to pay for taxes. So this is now a government accepting a stable coin, a cryptocurrency version of US dollars for tax payments. That gives us like a very strong support, even though it's a relatively small country and a small population. But still, I think the symbolic value of that is very strong. We are talking with a number of other governments around the world, and I think people will follow.
Okay, so apart from Bermuda, where are you seeing the most opportunity for it right now?
Sure. So in terms of governments, honestly, what we have seen is smaller governments are more faster because basically, if you look at Singapore, there's only one regulatory agency, MAS, right? And they are very advanced. They're very knowledgeable about cryptocurrency. But more fundamentally, they only have one department to organize. Whereas in the States, you probably have, I don't know, 8 to 50 states you got to organize, and they have to talk to each other. It's just slower. So it's not so much that doing things wrong, it's just that larger bodies move slower. So honestly, Binance have been, we work with governments that want to work with us. So we've been working with a number of governments. We see the smaller populations move faster. So it includes like Bermuda, we mentioned Malta, Jersey. We also signed a MOU very recently with Ukraine. We're a consultant for their regulations. So there's actually a very long list of governments we work with. It's kind of really hard to iterate through all of them.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So, and I know you have a few things that you've been that have been breaking news in the past few days. Do you want to talk about anything?
Sure. I think we always have like basically Binance is a decentralized team. Everyone's kind of working on their own little thing, and then things bubble up to be when they're about to be released or after they're released. So in the last couple of days, I think we announced a partnership with Paxos. Now we're the first one. Binance is the first one to integrate with the Paxos Gateway, which is a new gateway that's a very easy on and off ramp from BUSD or Pax into US dollars into bank accounts. So if you guys haven't tried it, you should try it. I think yesterday or the day before, we announced a partnership with HTC, the Taiwanese phone maker. And there's now a Binance HTC phone with an embedded hardware secure wallet in there. HTC phone also supports a full Bitcoin node. So the entire 250 gigabytes of Bitcoin data sits on the phone. And they also support natively Binance Chain, Binance DEX, BEP2, BEP3, etc. So, and I personally think that cell phone, right now, one of the difficulties we have with adoption is that the wallets are relatively hard to use, and the really secure ones are very hard to use. And I think this is the most natural device to be the hardware wallet. So we're very happy with our partnership. We had a partnership with Samsung a little bit back. We announced that about a month ago. So we are working with all these large traditional players, both on the technology side, on the internet side. I will have a bigger announcement. I'll be going to Turkey this Saturday or Sunday, and we'll have an announcement there. So there's always a lot of different stuff, moving parts around in Binance. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So watch this space in Turkey.
Yeah.
So where are your customer flows strongest right now?
It changes from time to time, and also it's actually a little bit difficult for us to track very accurately. We have this problem where people do use like VPNs to confiscate where they're coming from, etc. But if you look at the GDP distribution of all the nations in the world, we correspond very strongly with the GDP distribution. So so basically, the bigger countries have more users, but there are a couple anomalies in terms of GDP distribution. I think Vietnam's very active, Turkey's very active, Russia's very active. So these are sort of anomalies away from the GDP distribution from the bigger countries. But all the very developed countries are also very active.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about China?
China is very active now. I think we've seen a spike in the volume from China. I think the fact that China is very centralized. So President Xi Jinping has a lot of influence, or I should say just straight up power. When the leader of a country like that says something, everybody follows. So everyone that I'm in touch with before, they were kind of reluctant about blockchain. Everyone's looking at them now. So all the banks, all the large internet companies, they're all looking at blockchain. Well, they were looking at blockchain kind of before, but now they're like really, they come out of the sort of from under the table to on top of the table. So it's a very active market right now. I think that people also, from what I gathered, people are pushing very heavily from the top levels of government. They're pushing for education on blockchain. So I think it's very clear China wants everyone to understand what blockchain is. So I think China is very strong in this area where if you look at the internet, it's kind of restricted internet, but China is a big enough place where there's enough activity to go on its own. So and China did something really strong with the internet. They understood how internet works, and then they have their own ecosystem that's very strong. So I think I'm guessing that's probably what they're trying to do. So, but in order to do that, they encourage everybody to learn about blockchain. But I think that's a huge positive sign for our industry because when you learn about blockchain, you almost have to learn about Bitcoin. And when you learn about smart contracts, you probably have to learn about Ethereum. So I think that that gets everybody to understand our industry. Whether they choose it or not, that's a second story. But I think just having that understanding of our industry, having like 1.4 billion more people understanding our industry is a huge plus.
So did you see a spike occur then right after Xi's speech, basically? Is that?
Yeah. So in fact, we actually saw a big spike from every country after Xi's talk, right? So, and the Bitcoin price reflected that. The Bitcoin price was rising during the daytime and nighttime in Asia, so the daytime in the US, etc. So and we've seen a continuous growth. And we also rolled out our P2P. In China, it's called C2C trading. In China, P2P is a bad word, but it means a different industry. So in China, it's called C2C trading. We support RMB trading directly, access to crypto. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what about over-the-counter trading in China?
My understanding is very big. We just entered this space where there are other exchanges in China that have been in this space for quite a bit longer. And I do think they have much higher volumes for over-the-counter trading than us right now. So we just started maybe a month and a half ago. So but we're seeing a very steady ramp up on the trading volume. There's basically very high demand.
Okay. And then moving over to the U.S., what's your opinion on how the U.S. is going? I know we haven't exactly had a Xi blockchain endorsement at this point or anything, but from like a comparable one from the U.S. So what are you looking at there? What do you see?
Sure. I think the U.S. is more like the government is more spread out, to be honest. So it's not President Trump does not have that much power as President Xi in China. That's at least that's my understanding. Everybody says the President of the United States is the most powerful person on earth, but the structure of the government is more spread out. So there's more balances and checks. Unfortunately, President Trump tweeted something like he doesn't really like Bitcoin or something. I forgot, maybe 2 months ago. But I think there's a very clear path that some of our peer exchanges in the U.S. have established that we can pretty easily kind of copy. So this is why Binance partnered with BAM Trading Services in the United States. We launched Binance US. Binance US is a little bit different from Binance.com. Today, you still have a less selection of cryptocurrency there. But over time, my understanding is they will continue to add more and more cryptocurrency access over there. The strong advantage is that they do have access to fiat. So they support US dollars directly with bank accounts. You can bind your ACH onto that. So that's a very strong fiat gateway. And it's fully compliant. So basically, there's a way other exchanges in the US, namely Coinbase, have figured out a way to do it properly. Well, plus many other exchanges. So that's a recipe we're just following. Our partners are just following through. The growth is also very steady growth. So that's also very promising to see.
Okay.
Yeah.
And actually, now back to China. What do you think about the efforts toward a digital currency, and how do you think that's going to change the landscape?
Sorry, which digital?
The digital currency, the digital yuan.
The DCEP, the central bank one. Yeah, there's a lot of different speculations, but my personal guess, I may be wrong, it's going to be a blockchain version of RMB. That would be my guess. So, from a technology perspective, you will almost definitely use different variations of the blockchain technology. But it may be more centralized than like it will definitely be more centralized than Bitcoin, for example. You will still be issued by a central authority, etc. But my view is the more blockchain currencies we have, the better. So having it is definitely better than not having it. Having stable coins is definitely better than not having stable coins. To some extent, having Libra is better than not having. So my view is always the more choices we have, the better. If you don't like it, you don't have to use it. No one's forcing you to use a particular cryptocurrency. So I think having a central bank-backed stablecoin or a blockchain version of our RMB, I don't know what kind of restrictions there will be. The details of that is not public yet. So I think if it has a lot of restrictions, then less people will use it. But I think my understanding is the Chinese government or the China in general really wants to push RMB influence globally. So they want RMB to be competing with US dollars as the world dominant currency. So in order to do that, they really need to push this currency to have more freedom. So I hope they're very successful in pushing it. Then we have more choices in terms of which currencies people can choose from.
Mm-hmm. And so speaking of Libra, what do you think about how it's going for them? What do you think they're on the path to success?
So Libra is a very interesting case. So again, I'm very neutral. So we run an exchange. We just support we support products and cryptocurrencies that people want to use. So we actually don't really. A lot of people think we make listing decisions. We have judgments. We decide based on users. So if a product or if a coin have a lot of users, we have no choice but to support it, but to list it, right? So we follow the users. Libra is a very interesting case because there's in our space, especially like the hardcore cryptocurrency fans, we're very sensitive to privacy, etc. So we have a little bit of a negative sentiment towards Facebook. I think at the conference 2 days ago at the CoinMarketCap conference, there was a raise of hands on how many people use Facebook. Everybody raised their hand. The next question is how many people will use Libra? Nobody raised their hand. But I think that kind of survey may be a little bit misleading because when Libra launches, they have access to 99.9% of the users that's not in crypto today. And if they make the product really easy to use, those other guys just going to use it. And for a coin or cryptocurrency, it has a strong network effect. If everyone's using that currency to transact, you'll probably be forced to use that. And you'll be, not forced, but you'll be like inclined to use it. So I do think that very likely, if they push it out, they will have very high number of users, and the rest of us will have no choice but to use it. So it's really how many users you have. So I think at the end of the day, the users win. So I don't really have any personal sentiments against or for Libra, etc. But we reserve that opinion for our users. Yeah.
Okay. Now, moving on to Hong Kong.
Yeah.
They've said recently that platforms that offer trading of at least one security token may apply to be licensed. And they've issued warnings on virtual asset futures contracts. So how are you seeing this? Why do you think it's happening now? And is this going to affect you?
Sure. I think every regulation around the world may affect us, and we are very respectful of that. So whatever regulations that's coming out, we will fully, if there are restrictions, we'll comply. But overall, I think right now the way I understood at a very high level, again, I'm not an expert in this area. At a very high level, that's more of a framework for handling security tokens, so what we call STOs. And that exactly how STOs work is not super clear right now. There's a bunch of, well, there are a number of projects who are trying, who are the pioneers in this space. But they have, so far, they have not gained really strong, large adoption. So there's a number of restrictions associated with securities, of course, mostly, especially in the United States, for example, you have to have a accredited investor concept. You have to qualify for this, and they have a wide list of addresses, which significantly shrink down the number of people who can access it. So again, we make our decision based on number of users. So until that becomes a mainstream thing where the large number of users use it, we'll let those other guys pioneer it and experiment with it. So we're not really planning to do a STO license just yet. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think let's start getting the Q&A. So I'll see about that. And so let's see. I have to. Okay.
I guess the QR code is gone now. Yeah. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Okay. So I think this is working, and you just scan to get questions. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Actually, there are a few here. What is Binance's attitude to high-frequency trading bots, and do you encourage algo trading?
Yeah, I think, well, okay, sure. That's a good question. So today, I think we can't really say we don't support bot trading. I mean, most advanced users are using API trading. So API trading accounts for way more than the majority of our trading volume. So there's really no choice. We have to support it. Yeah. Okay. And I think also every exchange on Earth supports API trading. If you don't have support API trading, then that's more like an OTC trader. So yeah, we have to support API trading.
Okay. How do you see horizontal silos disappearing when corporates need to protect their business IP or networks?
I actually don't know exactly what that question means. But I think overall, as I mentioned before, I think basically exchanges are no longer a single exchange business anymore. So you got to think of exchanges as an ecosystem of services that we can provide. So the technology allows us to do that. So and the users want it, because you don't want to split your money for trading, split your money for spendings. You don't want to put your money in a lot of different places. It's really hard to manage and remember. So technology will remove those barriers, and things will consolidate. It's kind of centralized, but also similar solutions similar consolidation are done in the decentralized world. You can do futures, you can do like contracts on decentralized exchanges as well. So the technology is going to move in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Kevin asks, will Binance be assisting the Chinese government in its CBDC?
To be very transparent, we were not asked for advice so far. So we would love to help if anyone needs help. Binance Chain is is a public chain. It can function as a public open source distributed node chain. You can function as what we call a enterprise chain with closed number of nodes, or you can work as a private chain. So we're happy to offer our assistance if we're asked. But honestly, so far we have not had too much request for help, and we don't really know how to provide it. But we'll be very happy to help if we were asked.
Okay. Yeah. I have a question about what your plans are for the Ukrainian market.
Yeah, so we want to enable every market as much as possible. So in terms of enabling a market, we do a couple of things. We first translate our products into that local language, so all the UIs, all the apps. And then we look to support the local fiat directly onto Binance.com. And we probably will want to, so we already added UAH support, which is a local fiat currency in Ukraine. We already provided that support on Binance.com. So now you can deposit UAH directly onto Binance.com and trade whatever you want. So yeah, we want to provide as much as we can, and separately we are in discussions with the government, giving our advices. So that's not government that proactively works with us. We'll provide whatever help we can.
Okay. Yeah. Will you consider implementing robo-advisor types of assistance?
Sorry, what kind of
robo-advisors? Like that help you with investing and that sort of thing.
Okay. We are looking at a couple partners who are kind of doing this now. So honestly, Binance is a very, relatively speaking, smaller team than most other exchanges. So we're by volume, we're probably the biggest exchange around the world, especially in spot. And but by number of, by the team member, we're actually a small team. So we're working with a number of other partners who are doing a trading advisory, social trading, copy trading, etc., and also more advanced algo trading. So we're looking at a couple other partners who may help us to integrate more with Binance. But right now, honestly speaking, we are not doing very much in that space on the Binance core team.
Mm. Okay. Mitchell asks, will you offer to be a Facebook Libra partner?
I think basically, again, I think if we are not against running a Libra node if they invite us to run one. I think basically also this applies to every project in this space. So for example, Da Hongfei, my good friend, was just here now. We are open to running a Neo node. We're open to run a EOS node. We're open to we run a number of Bitcoin nodes already, of course. So we're pretty open to that. We're not against or for anybody. But if we can help the ecosystem grow bigger, we're more than willing to help. Yeah.
Okay. Here's another one. Will Binance do an IPO?
That's an interesting one. So right now, Binance is really not raising money. So the original point of the IPO is to raise money, but now IPOs are kind of turned into a thing where the VCs cash out on the retail guys. So we're not right now. Just short answer is we're not actively looking to do an IPO. We're not in the preparation stages of that. But I wouldn't rule out any possibilities. Anything could happen in the future, but we're not looking at that right now. Yeah.
Okay. Getting a few questions about plans for expanding in Southeast Asia, like Indonesia, Malaysia.
Yes, so we are already in Singapore, and Singapore is like one of the key financial hubs for Southeast Asia, and we are definitely looking at other markets in Southeast Asia. There are some really large countries with very high populations around here. So we're looking at all of those markets as well. Again, we want to turn on fiat support in those countries. We want to see what other services we can provide in those countries. Also educational efforts in those countries as well. So we're here, and most of them are only an hour or two away. So we are definitely looking at those areas. So I wouldn't announce anything yet, but there are things in the there are work in the pipeline, and we'll announce them in due time.
Okay. Someone asks, when are you launching options?
I think probably, well, we just launched futures fairly recently, so we want to grow futures a little bit more to be more mature. We did acquire JEX, which is also a futures and options platform. Their options work a little bit differently from the traditional financial options, so we understand that. We are looking how to tune that into a more proper options offering. So we are looking at options. There's like kind of pseudo options on Binance Jax already. If you're looking for like insurance type of options, etc., hedging, that's an area we're looking at. But I would probably say till the end of this year, we're probably not going to have other options offerings. But till the end of this year, there's only a month and a half, and that's kind of the visibility, to be honest, I have. But options probably going to come. Now there's a few large exchanges offering futures. Options probably going to come next. So probably within the next, I don't know, 3 to 9 months, there will be some kind of options offering.
Okay, and what about supporting social trading?
Yes, so I touched up on that just now, but we're looking at a number of partners in this space who are doing social trading already. So we want to partner with them to do social trading. Social trading is a little bit interesting as well. I think that's going to be a huge market later on. The market is still, it's already a huge market in traditional trading spaces. There's some really big players there. But we just haven't really had the bandwidth to do that just yet. So we want to look at partners who can potentially help service our users.
Okay. So are you hiring? If so, and in what areas?
Yes, well, we are hiring. We are hiring very aggressively. We are hiring for developers, designers, testers, especially mobile app developers, product guys, marketing guys, BD, compliance, everywhere. So what's interesting is Binance have always grown. We have never had layoffs. We started in 2017. Throughout 2018, when there was like a bear market, we never had layoffs. We never really we never fired anybody. We had very, very low turnover. And we're constantly hiring. But we hire very selectively. So we've grown at a slower pace, but we have always grown. So, and I think, we're always hiring. So and that's my main job. So that's my main job at Binance. I hire, I try to get people to come to Binance. So if you're interested in that, that's a much better discussion for me to have than somebody pitching me a project.
Okay, but so one last question. What technology project do you really see standing out in crypto, or what idea do you wish you had thought of?
I think there's a lot of different ideas. I don't really want to comment on specific projects because that cause a lot of pump and dump accusations. But I think there's a lot of areas the blockchain have not really enabled right now. I think gaming is a big one. It's a very obvious one. There's tokens in every game. There's virtual assets in every game, and gaming users have higher overlap to the blockchain users, like young, relatively younger, technology-savvy crowd, and they also spread out all around the world. So international transactions are very common. So I think that's a big area. E-commerce is probably a little bit later, to be honest, because established players are very strong in that area. Payments should come, but again, it hasn't really taken off yet. But there's a lot of different areas that I think blockchain could turn on, but we haven't done that yet. But that also speaks to the potential of our industry. So I think we have a lot of room to grow.
Excellent. We will end on that note. Thank you so much, Cici.
Thank you so much. Cheers.
Thank you.